Wow, you got quiet very quickly. Good job. Thank you. Don't forget your Turbo Chico. Very important. All right, hello and welcome to tonight's reading. How's everyone doing tonight? Good?
Great.
Yeah, enjoying the weather, the fall in Texas, one of the pros. My name's Scott Brownlee, and I'll be introducing our three readers pretty briefly, and then sit down and get out of the way so they can read. I'll go ahead and give you all their bios at once so that we don't have that annoying break in between. And they'll read in the order that I introduce them. James Arthur is going to be our first reader. He was born in Connecticut and grew up in Toronto. His first book, Charms Against Lightning, was published by Copper Canyon, and his poems have also appeared or are forthcoming in the New Yorker, Poetry, the New York Review of Books, the London Review of Books, the New Republic, Ploughshares, and APR. He's received the Amy Lowell Traveling Poetry Scholarship, a Hodder Fellowship, Stegner, a Discovery the Nation Prize, and a Fulbright Scholarship to the Seamus Heaney Centre in Northern Ireland. He lives in Baltimore and teaches at Johns Hopkins University. Our second reader and recent Austin transplant, welcome Heather. Heather Tone is the recipient of the 2015 APR Honigman First Book Prize for her collection Likenesses from Copper Canyon Press. She's also the author of a chapbook, Gestures, from the Cantonary Press, and her poetry has appeared in the Boston Review, the Colorado Review, Fence, and a lot of other journals. A graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop, she now lives in Austin, and it was interesting to learn today she's originally from Montana, so we're representing different parts of the world here. Our third reader was originally from Russia, born in Moscow. Anton Yakovlev studied filmmaking and poetry at Harvard. His latest poetry collection is called Ordinary Impalers. His poems have appeared in the New Yorker, the Hopkins Review, Prelude, Measure, and other places. The Last Poet of the Village, a book of translations of poetry by Sergei Esenin, is forthcoming from Sensitive Skin Books in 2017. Anton has also written and directed several short films. Kind of gives you a sense of our poets tonight. I think it's really great to get people from town and outside of town, and hopefully you enjoy their reading. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to James.
Thank you, Scott, and to Malvern Books, thank you as well for having me. Thank you all for coming out. I'm delighted to be here. This first poem is about a hardbound encyclopedia. At some point, it dawned on me that I was probably among the last few kids to grow up without the internet, but with an encyclopedia instead. So this poem is called Ode to an Encyclopedia. Oh, hefty hardcover on the built-in shelf in my parents' living room. Oh, authority on linen paper bolted from your dust jacket, questing beast of blue and gold. You were my companion on beige afternoons that came slanting through the curtains behind the rough, upholstered chair. You knew how to trim a sail and how the hornet builds a hive. You had a topographical map of the mountain ranges on the far side of the moon and could name the man who shot down the man who murdered Jesse James. At 40, I tell myself that boyhood was all enchantment, hanging around the railway, getting plastered on cartoons. I see my best friend's father marinating in a lawn chair, smiling benignly at his son and me from above a gin and tonic, or perched astride his roof with carpentry nails and hammer, going at some problem that kept resisting all his mending. Oh, my tone, my paper brother, my narrative without an ending. You had a diagram of a cow broken down into the major cuts of beef and an image of the Trevi fountain. the boarding house, the church on the corner, all that stuff is gone. In winter, in Toronto, people say, a man goes outside and shovels snow, mostly so that his neighbors know just how much snow he is displacing. I'm writing this in Baltimore. For such a long time, the boy wants to grow up and be at large. But posture becomes bearing. Bearing becomes shape. The man finds he's made a choice between two countries, believing all the while that he would never have to choose. This next poem is called Drone. I am the drone of a banjo's fifth string. I am the drone that gives bottom to the chanter in a highland fling. Haw, hum. I am the drone of drone itself, planted so pleasurably in the mouth. A monotone, a lodestone. I'm an MQ-9, a reaper drone, ranging wide, circling in the sky. No windows, no cockpit, no one on board. See how my hellfires fly faster than sound. I am drone, from the timble under the cicada's wing. I gather no pollen and have no sting. Arriving unheard, I haunt the sky and inseminate the queen before I die. I am a poetry that celebrates power. I bring. The White House is empty. I bomb air. I bomb breath. My country, 'tis of thee I sing. I have a 6-year-old son called Henry, and I'm finding that writing about children's books has been a kind of an unusually, surprisingly rich vein for me. So this poem riffs on a children's book that I'm sure a lot of you know, maybe all of you know, by Margaret Weiss Brown, called Goodnight Moon. And in case anyone's not, I see a few nodding heads, but in case anyone's not familiar, it's a book in which the narrator says goodnight to all the things of the world one by one. A bowl full of mush, an old lady whispering hush, a cow jumping over the moon. So this poem is just called Goodnight Moon. I used to be as unsentimental as anyone could be. Now I'm almost absurd, a clown carrying you on my shoulders, around and around Palmer Square, through the cold night wind as stores lock up and begin closing down. Good night, fair trade coffee. Good night, Prada shoes. Good night soon, my little son. You're a toothy, 2-foot-something sumo, a giddy, violent elf jabbing your finger at the moon, which you've begun noticing in the last week or two. Moom, moom. For you, the word ends with a mumming as it begins. For me, beginnings and endings are getting hard to tell apart. There was another child your mom and I conceived, who'd now be reading and teaching you to read, who we threw away when he or she was smaller than a watermelon seed. The chairs, the domestic bears, the clocks, the socks, the house. Once again, a strange cow springs from the green ground, beginning the enormous leap that will carry her above the moon. This is a pretty new poem. It's called School for Darth Vader. This battle station has no ping pong and no decor. Only consoles, catwalks, a reactor core. You are angry all the time. You've always been an angry man. Fuck the innocent people of Alderaan. Give in to your anger. Give in to your hate. You need more subordinates to asphyxiate. Your task this morning, standing at the window, staring into outer space. Your face is a mask. There is a mask underneath the mask, underneath the mask, underneath your face. I'm going to end with two last poems. This poem is called Wolf. No costume, Red Riding Hood, ever could disguise this jaw, this brush-like tail, this tongue. By now you must be married to a woodcutter, or to a woodcutter's son, but I am still entangled in the forest of your hair. Come back, get me out of this nightgown, and I'll show you how to raid a chicken coop, how to step around a snare. Only stroke my face again, as if it were one of the remaining wild places of the world. Does it make me a donkey, eating shards of apple from your hand? I'd devour every grandmother in the world to get back into your basket. Look at the savage brambles pasted through my fur. Don't tell me that my enormous teeth don't frighten you anymore. My enemy, the moon, looks down at me like a cauterized eye as I creep into the village and softly call your name. Little scholar, little flame, shy girl in a crimson cowl, let me unfasten the buttons that you've done up to your collar. The shepherd's boy keeps crying wolf because he thinks we'll never come. Red Riding Hood, come help me blow these houses down. It's not like I'm not able to live inside the law. It just makes me crazy seeing little pigs building up their houses of hickory sticks and straw. And the last poem is called Walking and Talking. Thank you again for having me. Thank you for coming. Now that my work's done and it's Saturday, now that my young son is out somewhere with his mom, I might as well roam all morning, spying on the filthy squirrels and on the shapes that disintegrating leaves have painted on the sidewalk. I might as well spend the morning talking to myself, hoping for meaning and unmeaning to braid and begin teaching me what to say. Some days I feel like a monarch at wing, meandering, not really deciding where I go, as programmed as the stubborn birds building nests of twigs and spit. Each bird pipes the song that it was taught and transmits the song to its own offspring. Earthworms driven up by last night's rain have squirmed onto the asphalt to slowly die. I save some who glue and wriggle, but there are just so many, and they almost seem to want to die. Day by day, I'm feeling my way into fatherhood, learning what my son is to me, and I to him. My boy, my kid, an 8-toothed homunculus, clutching an acorn in his fist, bewildered that a paper plate set down on the grass on a windy day won't stay put, but lofts and spins away. By the time I'm downtown, I'm turning back, in thought, if not yet with my feet. Before I'm back on my own street, I'll have twice walked by the little wedge of ground where people of this neighborhood bury their dead dogs and cats. A rawhide bone, a ball of yarn, waterlogged by the frowsy rain. Animals have never meant very much to me, but I've got them on the brain these days. How magnetic navigation brings spawning salmon home. How predation, variation, and the winnowing down of things gave shape to a world of species, giving them gills, wings, and feet. But I'd rather be dead than be a creature of any other kind. I walk upright, practicing the song of my species by speaking. Thank you.